Buddy, oh buddy, oh buddy, welcome to another episode of Thirsty Thursday. For those of you that are tuning in for the first time, Thirsty Thursday is the day of the week where we take our opportunity to hang out, have a good time. Sometimes we like to invite on a member of the community. Sometimes we just answer questions. And tonight we have a guest who's been here before, but damn it, he's back. And for good reason. We've got Cam with Elevated Lawnscapes. Sir, how in the hell are you doing?
What is going on? How y'all doing? We chilling over this way.
That's good, man. Good. Listen. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm glad you're back on. I'm sorry for the pre-show there. It was kind of hectic, and but you know what? We got it figured out. We're here now, and it's go time. Talk to me.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I'm gonna go. I got two things I gotta say here. I gotta say two things. Number one, I'm excited that Cam's back because Cam has one of my favorite attitudes of anybody that we've ever had on the show, and that is to learn shit. You got to break some shit, and he's all about it. So that he is our guy. He is our guy because that's how we learn too. And I'm also, we see how hectic it was for you, Matt, because clearly you didn't have time to do laundry, and you had to grab the last shirt that was left in your closet.
This guy right here.
The one. Look at that thing.
This guy right here. Look at that thing. I grabbed it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going on Thirsty Thursday. This is a perfect leisure shirt for Thirsty Thursday.
It looks like there's a longer gap in between the... It looks like there's some longer gaps in between the buttons, which means you get a little bit more chest hair out of that 2-button rule. I like that.
You're damn right. You got a good
tailor. You got a good tailor on that one.
True story. My wife bought everyone in the family lemon shirts. Well, the girls got lemon dresses, and me and my son got lemon shirts.
Makes sense.
Did pictures one time wearing lemons. But I still rock it from time to time. I don't give a shit. I think I like my lemons, man. Come
on. I like it. It's fresh. I like it.
Citrus.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a fan of citrus.
It looks cool. Okay, Matt? It looks cool. I mean, because...
Thanks, Ray. I appreciate it.
And you know what? I'm looking at that shirt, and it's almost like... That's almost like you're all set to be walking around with the fam in Waikiki.
Exactly.
It could be, or on an island somewhere where no one will ever find me again. Either or, I'm perfectly okay with either, to be honest.
Well, preferably the island where no one will ever see you.
Yeah.
So Matt's coming out tonight as a lemon fertilizer producer. That's actually what this is also going to find. But Cam he's come out as a tall fescue lover in the Mid-Atlantic. And how it's been an interesting year over there. I've been following the weather quite closely. Yeah. I had some sod that came out of there a few weeks back, and so I was following it closely. And every time I looked, I was like, "Ooh, that doesn't look good." So, what has it been like here the last, say, 4 to 6 weeks?
So I'm gonna say the past 4 weeks. 4 weeks ago, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm gonna be honest, I was cruising. It's surprisingly enough, I have been cruising this season up until about 3 weeks ago, which was my fault, and I think we'll get into that. But soon as July rolled around, and I've told people this, and once I did my climate appraisal, I started looking at it, and this is when I realized why my disease pressure and why disease and everything kicked up so much in July. July is one of our wettest months here in Maryland. So you couple that with heat, and normally it's coming from thunderstorms, and it's always late evening rain and everything else. And my backyard is shaded, so it doesn't really dry out that much during the day, and humidity is on 1,000%. It's problems. It is problems. So outside of that, man, and we have literally had, after Tuesday, we have now had 7 inches of rain in the past week and a half, almost 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
I'm battling in the back right now. I'm battling.
It's
But
defense time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I am battling in the back, but front yard, all my full sun areas, man, my full sun areas are loving it right now. Front yard, cakewalk. The areas that are in my backyard that's like full sun, this is probably those full sun areas is probably the best that they've looked since I've been working on the yard.
Mm. All right,
Shaded areas, that's a different story.
well, I think we'll talk about that because I remember some of the fence lines and some of the things that you got going on in the back that are kind of wacky, and yeah, I definitely want to go through that. So, here's my question: since the last time you're on, which was just about a year ago, has anything changed? God, that look good. Can you put that back up? Man, my shorts are getting tight.
Yeah, look at this. Ba-dow! Ba-dow!
Ooh.
So when was this taken?
Oh.
I think that one was probably that specific one was I think early June.
Okay.
Okay.
Looks good.
That was
Double
probably
doubles.
early June. That was actually today. That one was
Oh,
today.
come on, man. Listen.
That's one of my full sun areas. And
okay.
like I said, I was like, I think that is one of the best, like between that and the front yard at this point are probably looking the best that they've ever looked.
They're pretty good, man.
I can't complain about that.
No, that's good.
I mean, we're July 14th with 1,000% humidity. The kind of humidity where you go outside and you take a deep breath and you're like, I wish I hadn't have done that. That was disgusting.
Yep.
And your grass looks like this. You're doing good. You're ahead of the curve. That's this is you there's a threshold to be met, and we've exceeded the threshold. Things are great right now.
Yeah.
So
I can't complain about those areas. Those areas I can't complain. Y'all
then
know
what
me.
are you going to complain about?
Right.
I'm
you know me.
I'm
You know
looking
I'm
at your
fine
pictures
stuff.
here. These all look
I know. All right, so then okay, if this is here's this is setting up though. This is good. This is setting up because all this means is Matt Ray, we're not here to talk about the big stuff. It's time to start splitting hairs, right? Or slicing lemons. Yep. You know? You're up at the bar. There's no
lemon callback.
No customers in there. Yeah, you got to. All right, so your biggest concerns last year, you kind of highlighted and hitting at them right there as you're going through the intro. But after you came off the show last year, like, what did you think? Right? Like, hey, I took in XYZ. How did you apply it? What worked? What didn't work? And maybe what else did you encounter that you maybe didn't expect? Kind of just take us through the latter part of last year, kind of jumping into this year.
Yeah. So what I did do, I went down with a little more fert in the fall last year than what I did the previous year. Trying to, of course, set up for the change in my fertilization for this year. So this year, I actually wanted to get into doing a little bit less as far as at the beginning of the year in that spring time frame, and then also get on the cycle of focusing on putting most of my fert down during the fall. So, of course, I knew there was going to be a little bit of a transition. I didn't know how the lawn was going to react to that this year. And looking at my front yard, as the season was going on during the spring, it was not happy with that transition at all. But what I did implement was PGRs. So we started talking about PGR. Yeah, the front yard didn't.
Hey, hang on. Let me back you up right there. You said it didn't like the transition. What did you encounter going into spring?
So I think it was a little bit of our weather though. It was slow waking up. Like super slow waking up.
Tough spring.
And I think that was a little bit of weather had a little bit to do with that also. But once it got up and going, it's like it just didn't have the energy. Like it just didn't have enough food to kind of grow. I never really had a spring flush like in my front like I normally do. Even before I put the PGR down. And then
How
once it
late
got going,
did you make your last application last fall?
it was the last day that I could, November 15th. Well, no,
Okay.
I was done. I was done before then. No, I was done before then. I was 2 weeks before that. So my last application was the end of October because I was 2 weeks
What
ahead of that.
What do you recall exactly how much in you applied then? And I'm just asking more for just personal knowledge, not critique or anything.
And I wanted to kind of talk about that. So in the fall, I ended up with like 1.5 pounds that I put down between about when I did my overseed. I overseeded early, was end of August to about the end of October. And that was about 1 pound. I put about 1.5 pounds of N down during that period of time.
I feel okay about that.
Wait,
and
some of this might
go ahead, Ray.
Some of this might be due to having new grass as well. And I don't necessarily consider a lack of a spring flush a bad thing. It's not. I don't think that that's the worst thing. In fact, I think that is almost desirable, not to have a spring flush. The grass is steady.
Right.
It
just seemed that the color just wasn't there. It just seemed a little off. Like it was always, and then when I kind of noticed it was a little hungry is that I could see like some pea spots of some animal like that was in the yard, and you could see where they'd green up in certain areas a lot more. And it was like a night and day difference in green. And it looked more like that green that I was used to seeing when I had a little more fert on the ground than what I did this year.
At what point of the spring did you notice that?
It was after spring.
March?
I gave it
April?
all. No, I gave it all to spring. I didn't even touch it. I kind of stuck to the plan. And
you didn't apply any fertilizer this spring.
So my first application was in April, like end of April. End of April was my first application. Was the end of April. And then too, the weather was. I was looking at the weather, and it kept getting cold. Like the ground just didn't. The grass wasn't growing. So I was like, I'm gonna at least wait till it kind of starts growing a little bit, and then that's when I'll kind of help it along. But it was taking so long. Like I was like, all right, man, it's time to get going. Like, what are you doing? But I held off. I held off, and once it kind of got going, I was like, all right. And I only went down with 1/2 pound. Like, so I went down with 1/2 pound then, something light, and just got it going. And and that's when it kind of took off. It kind of got going, but it wasn't. And then come about, I say June, I put that the application down end of April, rolling into about June, when the temperatures and stuff started to warm up and everything started to get going. That's when I kind of started to see that, especially in those full sun areas, that it just wasn't like it was struggling a little bit.
Looks a little hungry there.
That's for a different reason, but it didn't get quite that bad. That's a different reason we're going to talk about later on.
No boy.
Yes. So that is, and I gotta say, in your area, I'm not super familiar with it at all. But I know y'all are a little bit colder than I am, but you also get sweltering hot temperatures like we do down here as well too. So
Matt, I'm typically
late
like
April
a
seems
month.
late.
It was later than normal. Yeah. It was later than normal. And typically just talking with Polo and then like some other southern states, I'm normally a month I'm normally about a month behind where y'all are.
Okay, makes sense.
So
what's going through your head over here, Demand? I'm curious.
I'll
tell you what mine is, but I'm the true green, I'm the true green guy over here. So
get me paid, bitch.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, well, I'm here for free version. Guess what I'm going to be putting down too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right. And I can't, even though Cam would never be on this list, but you never know when you're going to go on and give somebody a 3000 double app spite application. Oh, you don't like mowing your grass, huh? I'm making it hard on you. Oh, yeah. I just went from G to from G for grow to L for lush, and oops, I went over it twice. Sorry. So
actually, that's more for the people that complain that my grass is not green enough. Okay, dude, you want it green? We'll fix that. You're gonna learn, boy.
See, now Ray's got names for all these apps, like, and they're usually like death apps, right? You got Soul Stealer, you got Chernobyl. What Ray did? He's named this one Hugh Hefner at the mansion on a Friday night. That's what that was called. It's gonna grow, and you're gonna have a mess all over the place. So
I like the name, the Hugh Hefner. We just need to
Hugh Hefner. Just call. Hey, would you do your lawn over there today? Oh, I gave it to Hugh Hefner. Really? My goodness. You need a towel?
Well, I mean, there's Hugh Hefner, or else there's also Larry Flint.
Yeah, there is Larry Flint.
Well, I mean, that's either way.
Gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, I was gonna say either way. It's probably a good idea to get a cotton swab and get things checked out for you. But all right, so back to Cam's questions here. I don't have a problem with the you shut it down in November, especially in your location, and you don't make another app. Now, preceding the 1.5 pounds, how much total N for the year did you put down last year?
So I ended up at about 375 is where I ended up at the end of last year.
And if I recall, and it's been a year, but I remember numbers like crazy. I want to say that your climate appraisal form was probably like in the 3.8 to 3.9, something like that, probably.
Yeah, it was just right around 4. Yeah, just under 4.
So you hit that number and backloaded, about 40% of it. I think that. So the things I would say there is, I'd be interested if you backloaded it just a little bit more, right? If you bump that up to like 50% of your end going out in those last, say 10 weeks of the season, something like that. And every year is different, right? Like, I've had years here in Ohio, and we're probably not quite a month behind you, but I'd say at least 2 to 3 weeks, right? And I've had months here, or springs here, where we haven't fertilized in the spring until like after Memorial Day, right? Because we rode out that late season, all that fall app, right? And just let it go, because we didn't want to, there's no need to push growth. And the whole idea that, oh my God, if you put spring N out, listen, I will go ahead and disagree with that. When I was on the golf course, I was deathly afraid of that for a variety of reasons. However, when I got to sports turf, and it was like, okay, hey, like, we need to grow some fucking grass, like right now, because they're planning on it destroying it, and it's, we got to do something. Never saw any of those issues, right? And Matt could talk about, NC State. He's a big NC State Turf Files guy, right? Even though they're not in the SEC yet, but they probably will be sometime next year. They will be. The SEC is going to swallow them all up, dude. They will be.
What are you talking about?
I'm telling you, NC State. You'll be in the SEC.
I'm not against
beat
it.
somebody.
I'm okay, but this guy.
least it beats somebody.
If it's not the lemon shirt, it's the UT jokes. Here we go. What do you got next up there?
Do we need to talk about him?
Sidebar.
Sidebar. I got to keep you on your toes. All right. So, but the NCSU stuff, right? Toes. So the nubs, little. Did you manufacture? If a hand's worth 50,000, what do you think? What do you think 5 toes is worth?
10
anyway,
tops.
Yeah, 2,000 a toe. That seems fair.
Yeah.
All right. So back to our original thing, the NC State thing, right? So they, they put out that information here on tall fescue and specifically for brown patch, right? A few years back, right? You remember that, Matt, where they basically like looked at, hey, if we throw out like some absurd rates of nitrogen, I'll see if I can pull it up here.
Of course, DeMay freezes in the middle of that. But what he's talking about is NC State conducted a test, and there was a couple other universities that were along with it, but they were just really racking up the nitrogen rates through the course of a season from urea on monthly intervals or quarterly intervals, and starting at like 1 pound and working their way all the way up to like 6 pounds of actual nitrogen. What they saw was that there was not a lot of statistical difference in terms of the amount of brown patch development that took place among those. And so it kind of called into question over a 2-year period as to whether or not is nitrogen a direct contributor to the development of brown patch disease. And again, this is a 2-year window that we're looking into this, so it's hard to say that with definitive proof that's 100% of the case 100% of the time, but it definitely should alleviate some of that fear that if you're in nitrogen deficiency symptoms, underfed symptoms, supplying a little bit of into that type of window isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think is where DeMay was going to go with that.
Yeah, man. I think I think it was just a little underfed. I think it could have used a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do is my plan going forward is exactly what DeMay said. I'm a back end, what I was trying to do is get into that cycle. I'm gonna backload it a little bit more this season. I'm planning to go down with probably 2.5, because right now, about more so close to 3/4 of my N will be going down in the fall. So right now I'm just at like a pound and a tenth or a pound and 2/10 on the yard right now. My backyard is only at a pound right now in the backyard. So I'm gonna kind of spoon feed it through these next 6 weeks or so, get me into September. I'm gonna do some light overseeding and stuff on my edges, and then it's FERT time. Like I'm probably dropping my goal for this fall is probably going to be about 2.5, probably about 2.5 this fall, 2.5 to 2 2 3/4. Being that I've only got a pound on the ground right now.
Well,
and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, especially with fescue. And again, I'm going to give you the volume lawn care take on this. So this is, understand this isn't going to be for everybody, but this is the way we did it when you're trying to manage 600 properties kind of thing. Is, again, that fall load. Now where I have the competitive advantage in this scenario is that, I may not have my first freeze until Thanksgiving, right? And so really. Right. Through Thanksgiving, and even then, normally we're still cutting all the way up to Christmas, and so I can make that last application December 12th, December 14th, take off the rest of the season, and then in February things are starting to wake up, right? And so I'm coming back out. We have a couple 70-degree days in February. Everybody's outside walking. Put down. Half a pound in, 3/4 of a pound in, and everything is just electric. Now, granted, I'm still going to have weeks where I'm dipping into the 30s, and coming into March, I may have an inch or two of snow come down, kind of thing, right? But it's going to go from an inch or two of snow on one day to 50, 60 degrees the next day. So, I'm not too concerned about it. And it just, everything's electric at that point because I ended the year with it, pretty crispy and wanging. And then I started the year, as soon as I had that first semblance of a decent warming trend on my radar, then I'd go ahead and hit it again. Not saying that's for everybody. Again, where I am in the South, I have the ability to do that. Shut up, Jesse. Shut up. Close YouTube. Go somewhere else. Damn it, Jesse. This guy
just going to go back
to come on and flip his sunglasses, flip his glasses at us back.
I put him in timeout. Don't worry, Matt.
We need that.
So one thing about so one thing that you was talking about, Matt, as far as like your time period. So we'll get some of that too, because like the other year I was still cutting in December. Last year was a pretty warm one too. I wasn't cutting in December, but things were still green. It had pretty much stopped growing, but it was still in there. But the problem is, so we've got our FERC blackout. So we've got a FERC blackout from November 15th to March 1st. So March 1st is the first time that we can go down with FERC. But to be honest with you, it's not really the back end of that blackout that hurts us, because we're not really warm and stuff is not really growing around that March 1st time period anyway. What gets us is having to cut it off so early. Because I believe if we could get a little bit more time on that front end of the blackout to where we could get like that last app down beginning of December-ish, something like that, mid-December, because the grass is growing slowly. But I mean, at that point, it's not really probably uptaking any much of that nutrients anyway. So I mean, it would probably be all right.
The reason why they have to do that, and this is the part I have to look at objectively and try to give a sound reason to, right, is that, again, lawn care is going to be the bastardized version of agriculture, right? We're the bastard children of agriculture. And so, when if we're allowed to load in the fall, then farm is going to be allowed to load in the fall. And the problem is that they may be like drilling anhydrous ammonia, and they may not be drilling like a 3/4 of a pound like we would be, or a half pound like we are. They may be drilling like 2 to 3 pounds of N. Right. So they're doing that in December, and then they've got frozen ground December 15th. Well, now all of a sudden they've got frozen ground with 3 pounds of N loaded in it. Right. Because you can tell farmers like that's not the appropriate method of 4 R's, and they're going to be like, oh, yeah, OK, drill it, baby. Just, going ham out there. So, again, I get it. And it puts you at a quote unquote competitive disadvantage. I don't know who you're competing against. You're not competing against anybody, but I think that it will shift the burden of responsibility on turfgrass response on your spring application. And so I'm in my opinion, and I probably wouldn't have figured this out until I went through exactly what you did. But like you've said now, a little bit heavier load in the fall when you do get the opportunity to within your range, and then in the spring maybe a little bit earlier in your spring application too, to go ahead and kick that up as well. But again, that's one of those things that trial by fire until you don't know.
And that's kind of what I'm doing, and that's I'm kind of making adjustments and everything. So another thing to look at is my CEC. So I'm sitting on basically sand over here. My CEC is like I think it's like a 4.1 or something like that. So it being able to hold nutrients, that's why I spoon feed so much. I mean, CEC is low, 4.8 on my CEC. So holding nutrients, spoon feeding is what I've seen the better response. Those smaller doses more frequently going down. And I just think I could get away with those smaller doses earlier, probably next season, than what I did this year, just to kind of get it going, because I think it's just going to be starving coming out of winter, probably.
Yes,
Yep,
you are actually a case for the low rate spoon feed, and conversely, looking at the CEC, you might not benefit very much from trying to load in too much at one time anyway, because I don't see anything in here that's going to retain it.
Yeah.
Actually. So why load it if you can't hold on to it?
Yeah. And I haven't done that. I haven't made an application more than, so that first application that I went down with, that was a half a pound, has been my largest application this season. Everything else has been less than 2/10, and this it's been a lot less than that. Most of them have been a tenth is really where I've been. And I think the next one was 2/10. So that's kind of what I've been doing with the more frequent applications, and they've just been smaller, and it kind of helps the lawn stay a little more consistent. I think that what we were talking about, I just kind of probably needed to get going with those applications a little bit earlier than what I did this season. I think it would have been all right a little bit earlier and just kind of continued them on in the spring. I think it probably would have been all right.
Here's another thing too I kind of want to throw out there is not just your sulfur levels. You are teetering at the minimum levels of sulfur.
Yeah.
And I wonder what kind of influence that has, because obviously sulfur is not nitrogen, but there is some correlation to color response from sulfur. And so I'm wondering what that would be like too, if you could get that number up. But the hard part about this is again, are you even going to be now? Sulfur is an anion, sulfate is an anion, so not necessarily directly correlative to not directly causative to your CEC, but it does correlate because it's showing your sandier soil. So the potential for it to leach out is of greater potential. So I don't know, and I kind of want to throw, and this is crazy because I am a Lushy. Again, I will kick your ass too, and you know this, MFer. You know this. I will crawl up your ass. The thing I want to say about this, and guys, I'm an anti-gypsum person, 100%. I will shit on gypsum from sun up to sundown with a smile on my face. However,
I got a weird
calcium sulfate. There's a big pile back there, and my bathroom is nice, but I'd much rather.
We need some lawn burgundy art on that for sure. Go on.
In this particular, and why I would say gypsum is calcium sulfate, right? So you have a fairly decent sulfur load in it, and the advantage there is that it's not very soluble at all. Calcium sulfate is very difficult to dissolve, and so it would provide you a quote unquote, and this is a huge stretch of the word that I'm saying here, but because it's less soluble, it would be a little bit more of a longer term, slowly available form of sulfate to apply. I'm throwing it out there as just a potential option. I'm not saying that it's a great choice or a good choice even, but I'm curious, Ray and Ryan, what your thought may be in this particular instance of using gypsum to supply a slower available form of sulfate just through reduced solubility.
Yeah, I was going to
say
could be
smoke drugs here, but
no. Smoke, snort, inhale, absorb directly, whatever. We have no judgment here.
I'd rather snort it, but
So, I think there's merit to what you say, and you're absolutely right. It is wicked sick. Jesus.
Sean. Oh, that is a good comment. I'll let that slide. Sorry, Sean.
I think that if it was a small enough amount of elemental sulfur, it wouldn't even be enough for an app. Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say. It's the safest way to do it.
We don't need to play around there.
We don't need to. We don't need the excess sulfur, going through hydrolysis and driving out those hydrogen ions and making his pH even lower. So, all that being said, I don't see a problem with it. Rate-wise, boy howdy. I mean, you can put this stuff out almost like lime. I mean, you can put this out. No, you're not kicking. Robert Palmer will. Right, Robert. He'll kick all.
I'm not going to threaten to kick Robert's ass. Yeah, I'm going to come up with something. Robert, I was going to be like, all right, Robert, let's. All right, Robert.
Shout out to my man Turf. It's probably like 4 o'clock in the morning over there.
Yeah, he's.
Go to bed, Robert.
So okay,
we working, baby.
And DeMay freezes again. What are the
chances? Oh shit!
Oh no, he's back. He's
all
back.
Right.
He's back.
I'm back. All right. No, I was gonna say, I would do it. I think if you did like 2 apps a year, and if you went somewhere in the range of I'd say 10 to 20 pounds per 1,000, and you want to either irrigate the hell out of that or get it an okay time to apply that. Honestly, is after November 15th. When
does he have to irrigate the hell out of it though?
Doesn't have to. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything.
I mean, just going to. I mean, really, just let it sit to let it just slowly do its thing. Again, that's kind of where I'm going with this. That's my theory.
You just want to solubilize it. I'm just saying, if you want to solubilize it, yeah, you got to have an ass load of water. What is the? Let's look at that because listen, we're in nerd territory right now.
Solubility rate is low.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Gypsum is extremely insoluble, but likewise, it is probably going to be my choice to supplement sulfur in your case. And this is one of the few times when I'm not opposed to applying gypsum to a lawn is in your case, because also your calcium level is right in the middle of, I want to say almost low-ish.
Yeah.
And so if you were to put down a total of 20 pounds per year of gypsum, and by the way, how much rain do you get?
Hang on one second. Chuck Benzing, calcium sulfate has nothing to do with pH. It is not going to influence pH. Let's get that out there. Again, that's one of those old wives' tales. Calcium sulfate does nothing to pH. It has 0 to do with pH. If anybody ever says apply gypsum for pH, absolutely not. Now, if you're saying calcium sulfate to apply sulfur because of the pH he has currently is a 6.1 and we don't want to drive it lower with elemental sulfur, yes, that's perfect. But I don't want you to think that calcium sulfate is going to move. Okay, now he's clarifying. Yes, calcium sulfate will not move soil pH. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Ray.
Calcium sulfate has
really excited.
No effect on pH. The only time it could possibly have an effect on pH is if that calcium then displaces a large amount of magnesium and sodium from the soil. Then there may be small movement of pH. However, in most cases, calcium sulfate or gypsum is a neutral source of sulfate ions. And likewise, you know what the other neutral source of sulfate ions is for soils? Potassium sulfate. Sulfate of potash. That is a neutral, non-acidifying source sulfate because sulfate
it is significantly more soluble in water. So we're talking potassium sulfate is going to be somewhere around what, a pound per gallon would be the rate of solubility.
Yeah, actually, not even that. Water. Half a pound. half a pound.
Oh, you can get a pound in there, buddy. Trust me. You can get a pound.
It gets a little crunchy through the pump, but you know.
Yeah, it gets a little crunchy. I've done it, so I know.
Solubility at 20 degrees Celsius. So what is it? What does that work out to? I have no idea. 20 C.
About 70 degrees.
68 degrees. 0.0175. 0.0175 pounds is the solubility rate in water. So very, very insoluble.
Did not know this, and it's atypical of most salts, but it is retrograde soluble, meaning that the higher the temperature of the water, the less soluble it becomes, which is...
I did not know that either. Wow.
Actually,
That was kind of mind-blowing.
Did you know that many calcium salts actually act like that? Many. In that the hotter the solution temperature, the less soluble they become. In fact, there are certain calcium salts or compounds where they are entirely soluble until you raise the water temperature, and then they crash out. And calcium citrate is an example of that, by the way. It forms a relatively clear solution when the water is still cool, but the minute you jack up that temperature, it crashes out. So, but anyway, I'm thinking that, in your case, ideal supplements for your nitrogen include gypsum, as well as a little bit of, sulfate of potash, for the potassium. And do you know what sulfur does to grass color? It improves it. Sulfur helps get the grass.
And that's another reason why a lot of my efforts that I've been going down with, I've been focusing on the sulfur piece of it, not just because of I'm low in it, but I know the results of increasing my sulfur levels and just like you said, the greening effect. So
of course.
So Sean, if you think my lawn is green and on the juice now, just wait.
Yeah, well, and the reason why I say this, is because to my eyes, I can tell the difference between a lawn greened up with urea nitrogen, nitrate nitrogen, and say something like ammonium sulfate. And the way that happens is that there's a difference.
I tell you what,
in the color.
I look normal on the camera right here. I'm a big boy.
That ammonium sulfate green is different from the other kind of green that you get from the other fertilizers, right? It's different.
So
work twice.
So Ray, what's your opinion on the difference in the green? My difference in the green that I've seen and what I noticed is it's like that deeper, darker green that's not like, it's not off colored. It doesn't give you like that bluish color that looks fake, that you can tell like it's been iron, like it's a lot of iron or
too much iron. Yeah.
But it gives you kind of like that true deep green is what I see from like ammonium sulfate and like sulfur type of green up.
Okay, Cam, that is absolutely correct. That is absolutely true, because to me, when somebody greens up grass with, say, urea-based fertilizer, to me, the grass looks almost like plasticky yellow-green.
Yep.
Whereas the ammonium sulfate green is like this nice dark leaf green, like a forest green, and that is a highly desirable color. And the thing about getting that green out of ammonium sulfate, for example, is
I'll push you down
I
the stairs.
find that I don't have to do
R.I.P. Ivanka.
as much nitrogen out of ammonium sulfate to get the color. For example,
Right.
it doesn't. I
All
don't
right,
need more.
I'm gonna interject right here. Because I have seen this exact same thing, and again, you know, that's why I structured things the way I did when I did lawn care. Right? Why is it? Somebody tell me this. There have been several studies published recently. Aldo, I'll whoop your ass too. There have been several studies published recently about color response of various nitrogen fertilizers and a lack of variance between your nitrogen source and color response. Is it just, and again, they're doing this through NDVI is typically how they're doing this. What is your take on this, DeMay? Because I'm telling you, I have spread so many tractor trailer loads of urea over the years. I can't even count how many tractor trailer loads of urea I've spread over the years and how many tractor trailer loads of ammonium sulfate I've spread over the years. And in spring and fall conditions, well, on cool season grass or even early summer conditions in warm season grass. Wait a sec. I may have answered my own question. There's a reason why I timed those applications that I did. Well, you know, part of it too was just that when I would move into the hotter parts of summer, I couldn't get a polymer-coated ammonium sulfate. So I was kind of limited to a polymer-coated urea or a methylene urea or something of the sort. Why do you not see in the trials the same level of color response that we, all four of us here, have witnessed out in the field? Why is that?
You know, the only thing I can think is one, variability in pH, number one, variability in soil type. And I also, you know, I don't know in those trials what grasses they're using. Like if it's older grasses, if it's more elite, you know, newer cultivars, whether it be, you know, vegetatively propagated Bermuda grass or you know, elite Kentucky bluegrass. J Pink, throw up this picture real quick that I sent over in the Discord. This is an ammonium sulfate color. This shit is like dark, just the perfect shade of green. I mean, just ripping right now. Just getting bumped with a half a pound of ammonium sulfate about every 3-4 weeks. Kentucky bluegrass at an inch. That you can't. I can't get that same response with urea. I'm not saying that urea is bad. I'm saying that there's times to use it and everything like that. But here, this is an example of just anecdotally, Turf Truth will slit our throats right now. You realize this, right?
I can feel Turf Truth's anxiety coming through the screen right now.
Where is
that? I'll say this too. Hang on, I've got another one to throw out here too. I got another curveball. Uflex and Umax, I feel like elicit a different color specifically. That was a good one, JP. Specifically, even more so on cool season grass than warm season grass. And so I would say it's almost specific to cool season grass. I feel like Uflex and Umax elicit a different color in cool season grass than just urea does. Has anybody else experienced that?
I can't say definitively if I have, but and please, for those of you listening at home, this is not us advocating, hey, all you need to spread is ammonium sulfate and nothing else. It's an acquired taste. You better know what you're doing. There's a time and a place. Yep. Yeah, you better know what you're doing with it between Memorial Day and Labor Day, because if you don't, boy howdy, it could go bad, right? You might, you know what, Matt? I'll give you another call back here to burn return. If you mess up with some ammonium sulfate in the middle of summer, you might be able to go work for Cut and Kill. You have a job opportunity up there for you,
buddy. That was a good one. Those rest in peace, Cut and Kill. Rest in peace. May your charter and insurance forgive you.
Man, that's a tough one. That's a tough.
Hey. Listen.
So I'm
All right, go back.
Speaking of the urea, I'm pretty sure. Right. I'm not gonna say I'm pretty sure. My neighbor on both sides of me, the one on the left was a little late, but the one on my right side, like their front yard butts up next to my test plot. So they came out. So over on the side, you actually can't see it. The one over on the left side by the truck. So they came out guns blazing. I mean, application company was out there. They were spraying and praying and everything else. And it probably looked the best that it had ever looked. And I was like,
oh yeah,
man. I was like, well, they came out the gate on fire. But I was like, you know what? I know it ain't nothing but straight 4600, and they lighting it up and getting it green. And of course, I was like, hadn't even woke up yet.
That had to be straight out of the gate. The guys, we've got one. We got a new account. Let's go ahead and enact the new account mode, which is bi-weekly apps at a half a pound of.
That's pulling a Matt Martin right there. JP, can you throw this up? This is from Brandon Falk. He posted this in the fertilizers section of the Discord there. And the study is nitrate and ammonium affect the overall maize response to nitrogen availability by triggering specific and common transcriptional signatures in roots. And we'll talk about this here. It says, in conclusion, the study provides a detailed picture of the global transcriptomic response of maize young roots to early nitrogen starvation or nitrate and ammonium supply, allowing us to distinguish common and individual elements of the overall response. In particular, different regulatory elements contributing to modulating the plant development and overall response to N availability were identified, thus providing a number of molecular targets, which could be the starting point for further research in root biology or application of plant genetics and biotechnology to improve nitrogen use efficiency. Furthermore, the present results also suggest that nitrate and ammonium could trigger the production of different secondary metabolites and the activation of unique hormonal pathways, thus affecting tolerance to pathogens and abiotic stresses. In this perspective, the precise knowledge of these mechanisms could represent useful information for the fine-tuning of nitrogen fertilization to improve resistance to stresses. So, it kind of, and the whole point there is is that your different nitrogen sources are going to affect different pathways within the plant. You're going to get different metabolites that form, and then thus even greater number of secondary effects. And some of those secondary effects, that may be affecting, abiotic pathways or hormonal pathways may indeed be allowing different color responses. But I think more so specifically with ammonium sulfate, there's something about ammoniacal nitrogen and the combination of sulfur there, that sulfate piece of it. And one of the other things that I've read in another study, and I don't recall which one it is, but it helped with the uptake of additional iron into the plant. Part of that could be through the acidification that occurs from the ammonium. Part of that could be from the response of elevated sulfur levels within the plant too. There's some correlation there that with higher sulfur levels within the plant, typically you're going to see higher iron levels within the tissue levels as well, iron and manganese, if I recall correctly. So, and both of those are going to produce a darker grass.
All of that's color.
Yeah, and it's interesting though that so many of these, and it was the latest one from Travis Shaddix. That was just analyzing cost and length of color response, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Cost. Source. It wasn't just color response. I can't remember who did the color response by nitrogen source, but it was, it was pretty much across the board. I think like calcium nitrate may have been a little bit weaker. Methylene and triazone ureas were a little bit weaker. But I think it was like pretty hand in hand that urea and ammonium sulfate were on par with one another. But again, we don't know what the soil conditions were. We don't know what grass type they were growing. We don't know what cultivars of grass they were growing. So pH, all the other fun stuff that goes into affecting the soil moisture levels that can, vary wildly. So it is interesting. Thank you for co-signing my bullshit in that, because it's something I've witnessed over the years. Ray has, and DeMay has too.
Yeah,
I leverage it. Yeah, and I leverage it. I totally leverage it because people wonder why, for example, I'm a big believer in spoon feeding AMS unless somebody has acidic soil. Fortunately for me, in most cases, I'm working on rather alkaline soils, so I benefit from the AMS more than I do from the various polymer coat ureas. And you know what I'm also after with the various nitrogen sources? Providing nice color without creating increased growth.
Yeah.
That is what I'm actually after, is how to get the color without pushing vertical growth and increased biomass.
So just speaking about my neighbor, again, like I said, they came out of the gate screaming, had me questioning my whole thought process of, Cam, what are you doing? I mean, the whole neighborhood, because there was this one company that I think most of my neighbors have switched to. And I mean, they were looking good. I mean, I couldn't complain at all about that. I was like, man, y'all came out the gate on fire. But now you turn and you look now, and this is like the color has, and the health of the turf has just been on the decline ever since about early June. You can kind of see like the turf has just been like on a decline on color, on health, on like just,
and
I mean everything.
Cam, this is kind of why, for me, I wouldn't be so enthusiastic about pushing that spring growth, because do you know what's happening to your neighbors right now? They had their lawns pushed, foliar growth, leaf growth, shoot growth at great cost to their root growth.
To the roots.
And so now it's hotter, it's drier, or it's more humid. And due to that sacrifice where they got their spring flush, their spring surge growth, all that happened at the expense of long-term root growth.
Yeah.
And so now the check has to be cashed on that.
Yeah. And I'll give you another example of what happens too from a lawn care perspective is that, you move into a neighborhood like that, you come in, you blow your budget early. And then you're trying to figure out what you're going to spray the rest of the season to help make up for that money that you blew on all that expensive ass nitrogen, which this spring, those companies that are out there pounding nitrogen, they were buying at the absolute max of the market right there. And then they're trying to figure out how they make it up. And I can tell you what lawn care applicators fall victim to is that, well, I spent so much damn money on nitrogen. What I'm going to try and do from this point forward is I'm going to try and biostimulant my way out of this, right? And that's how I'm going to make up my money. I can spray this at 3-6 ounces per 1,000 and try and make up the difference here. And I'm doing something for the health of the plant. I'm doing something for the health of the soil. That's what you're telling yourself. And so I'm going to go out there and I'm going to spray it. And it's going to be cheap. It's going to be 25 cents a 1,000 kind of thing because I spent $3 a 1,000 on my first app. And so I can make up my money here a little bit so I can afford to overseed in the fall and all that fun stuff, right? And then you get into a situation where, you were hot and heavy in the spring, and now you've let it go on completely depleted where you're applying biostimulants, but you're not applying NP&K, which is still going to be critical for the success of the plant as you move into the hot part of the season as well, too. And so now, you're scratching your head and you're like, it's got to be the weather. It's got to be disease. What is it? And then you're selling fungicides because you think it's disease when in reality it's just you got a starving ass lawn out there, but you're scared to fertilize it because it's hot. and you don't want to spend any more money on it because you're already in the hole, and then you get into this loop, and you're like, well, I'll just wait till fall, and and that's where that difference begins to set in now when you're looking at it, and you're like, well, sorry, buddy, you shit your pants early, and good luck trying to wipe it all up for the rest of the year.
And see that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like they came out of the gate fast. I came out slow, but I've just been consistent. And the lawn is, especially like my test plot is right beside their lawn, so I can look at it like night and day. And at this point, like I'm dark green. Like I mean, it's looking good over there, and they are just on the decline. And we've had sufficient water here. Like, I mean, we went a little while where it got a little dry. But for the most part, like I haven't even really ran my irrigation like that. So I can't say that it's because I'm irrigated and they're not. I mean, hell, we've been 7 inches of rain in the past 2 weeks. So just about everybody is green if you've been on a decent fertilization plan. And I'm looking at the lawns that company has been taking care of. And I told people, I was talking to somebody, and I was like in the neighborhood, and I was like, yeah, man, their lawns are looking good right now. I'm just interested to see what they're going to look like come into June, July. And the proof is in the pudding right now. And I was like, that's not the way that I would have ran my program. So I've got a client across the street. That is she's almost as green as I am. I'm irrigating. She's only had maybe 1.5 pounds on the ground this spring. And it's only been 2 apps. She's been about 1.5 pounds on the ground, and it's green. It's not looking like everybody else's. And I'm just sitting back like, nice work, Cam. Nice work.
Hey, I'm going to tell you from a marketing perspective, this is when you go handing out door hangers like crazy and be like, hey, you did good, but we do better.
Yep.
You know what, Cam?
I'm not shitting, man. I'd be out there leaving door hangers every damn week and be like, I treat this and this address. Come take a look, and you can look like too. You don't have to look like this. Rest in peace, asshole.
Yeah, you know what?
Have a picture of yourself with your shirt off, flexing in it, and be like, oh.
Yeah,
that's marketing 101 right there.
This goes to kind of show you what we always talk about in this show about how you can show off, act up, do whatever during the peak growing season of the grass. But the real test is what that same grass looks like during the stressful time, which would be now. And likewise with me, people can think their balls are big from May until November, but I am literally busy dealing with turf in decline from November till May.
What's Jay Pink's YouTube mantra, right? If I only see the inside of your garage and never see your lawn, might have some issues.
Yeah, exactly. But
haven't seen Ron Henry's front lawn in a while.
Yeah, what happened? And
he's growing Pythium.
Yeah. And you know what? I haven't seen somebody else's Empire Zoysia in a while. I haven't seen somebody's Empire Zoysia in a while either. Come to think of it. Not going to name names. And he was the guy that said, nah, I'm going to mow it tall and throw it down. I was told that.
It happens. It happens. Everybody's on a learning curve here, and sometimes you learn.
Sometimes it's pretty. Sometimes it's a It's a nice, gentle, rolling hill, and other times it's a slip and slide to death, right?
Yeah,
especially when you're watering 10 minutes every single day.
And I've been there.
During
I've been there. Been there, done that. Not the watering part, but there's stuff that you got to learn. I mean, a lot of times you got to learn them the hard way. And then the thing is that you got to keep learning. I think that's one of the things that
no doubt
I've definitely learned over the course of the past 3 years is that it's gonna change. Like things are gonna change, and you got to keep learning to figure out the stuff that you're gonna come up against because it's not gonna be the same every year. Just like for my backyard, I think one of the reasons I did so well last summer through this period of time is that it was dry. Like I was able to keep the backyard dry. Like we didn't have a lot of heavy rains. It didn't rain often. Most of the water that it got was from when I decided to water it. And we had long breaks without any rain. So I was able to keep it fairly dry, which was beneficial for the backyard that was in the shade. You dump 6-7 inches of rain in the shade and you ain't got nothing to dry it out. Can't take the water out the soil, but so quickly.
Cam, can we take a look at the picture? So we have a section here in our notes that's called the challenge of the season, and you're talking about a thinning in shady areas and edges.
Yep.
And so I feel like I have a pretty easy approach to this. Now, my definition of easy and your definition of easy may be two totally separate different things here. My initial thought when I see this is the easy one, which is a chainsaw. I think 100% this is pure decline due to light deficiency.
Wifey,
nothing more, nothing less.
Are you listening? Chainsaw.
Wifey,
are you listening? Chainsaw.
Yeah. Ryan, when you see this, does this look like decline due to disease or overwatering, or does this look like shade decline? Because in my opinion, this looks like shade decline.
You know what I call this, Matt? I call this a crossbow deficiency. Okay,
because Ray is going to drill the tree and spike it with crossbow. Is what's going to happen.
Gonna just mix it up, a little drink, little stiff drink,
Or
just don't actually. That's feed it to the tree.
That stump, that remaining tree stump is going to get a special pruning paint consisting of crossbow and diesel fuel.
Jeez, Ray is not extreme. He's just on point. He's just effective. That's all. That looks like shade decline to me. So if you're and again, and the whole reason I want to say that too is that if you're blaming yourself for something culturally or whatever, I would not. I don't think this is anything you've done. I don't think this has anything to do with program wise or soil conditions or whatever the case may be. I think this is purely due to shade, and your only thing you're going to be able to, if you want to get experimental, okay. And again, the probability of success here, I would put at 20% or less. Is and also something that you did is keep it under extreme regulation. And maybe you'll be able to hold on to it a little bit longer in the summer, but realistically now you're July 14th. I would say you'd be able to hold on to it till about here before it started undergoing decline, and you're undergoing decline about here. Yeah, so you did probably about as good as you're going to get out of it. And at
2 weeks or so.
Exactly. And so now it's time to if it's that important, there's two. Well, the other thing you could do is landscape it as well too, right? So cut you another section of the lawn out, landscape it, put you some pretty camellias in, or hydrangeas, or whatever you want to do, and
or hostas or whatever.
Hostas, yeah.
Right? Yeah, but
I'm definitely a fan of not forcing grass to grow where it doesn't want to grow.
But if you didn't have a tree there, it'd probably want to grow there as well too.
So what I'm thinking about doing is actually going in. There's a major branch that kind of branches off the tree that I think is keeping it from getting at least a decent amount of sunlight to where I think it would perform a lot better. The downside is, and what I'm trying to, I keep looking at the sun pattern as it comes across. We do love the shade in the back. I wanted to get rid of all the trees. Like, to be honest with you, I was like, man, I want my grass. But then when it does get shady in the evenings, when it's 90 something degrees outside, and you can walk out and lay in the hammock and it feels like it's 75 degrees outside with the wind blowing through there, it's nice.
You're Southern as hell. Listen to this guy. Listen to this guy.
It is nice. So I don't think the tree, and plus the cost of getting rid of it. But that main tree just showing right there in the middle, I think there's a main branch that if I could take that branch off of it, it would open up the majority of that back area, at least so that it would get sunlight until about 2 o'clock.
Sure. And that may be all you need.
And the sun will pass over to the other side, and then so my trees on the left side of the screen of what you're seeing, and my neighbors has trees on that side also. Then the sun will be on that side, and it'll cast the shadow over onto the lawn then. But it probably will get sun till about 2 o'clock.
You know what? In that case, Cam, I would probably suggest that you work with an arborist and have them selectively trim the tree, because I've seen it done in various lawns where the tree doesn't get scalped, the tree doesn't get coat racked, but it does get selectively pruned, and that selective pruning then over the long term opens up more sun going into the lawn moving forward. So I would, I would kind of consider that too, but the fastest answer is that special pruning paint.
Listen, I know the kind of person you are, Cam. You're not scared to become a licensed applicator. What about going after an IBA, an ISA arborist certification?
Oh boy.
Sheesh.
It's a little different.
It's a lot
than squirt. I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot. It's a lot of knot tie-in, all kinds of stuff that you have to do for arborist certification. It is like next level kind of shit. But
although I did just see a tree company out in the western United States though that just sold for 21.5 times its profit. 21.5x. That's pretty good.
You say that was an arborist company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If companies that have certified arborists on staff are going to do really, really well, because one of the things you really learn how to do in arborist certification, especially, and there's multiple ranks of certification, over a period of time, you become a master certified arborist and all this fun stuff, is you learn how to deal with the dirty of the dirty of trees. And so, there are houses out there that are built literally around the focal point of a tree, and it'll be like a house that's a square that has a center tree that dies at some point. And let me tell you, they're not calling the guy who trims their bushes to come in and remove that tree. You know what I mean? And and the certified arborists come in and map out, the way this tree is going to be removed. It's going to be safe for the people that are removing the tree and to preserve the property and the investment there. So it's totally different. I highly recommend it because I know you're a man of learning. I highly recommend you take a look at it. Take a look at a sample test even to kind of wrap your mind around the different areas that you would be dipping your toe into as far as learning. And you're going to respond one of two ways. You're going to be like, wow, this is incredibly exciting. Or you're going to be like, this is way too much. And there's probably no middle ground in that. So, but no harm, no foul either way. Yeah. Because when it got into the rope tying thing for me, I was like, no, I could care less about tying.
You said that.
Matt,
say that's it. That's enough.
I have an interesting observation.
Pineapple.
Tell me.
I have an interesting observation is that most of the tree people that I know, at least here locally, they are strictly tree people and they don't deal very much with, or they don't want to deal very much with turf grass, for example. And so that is where I'm good friends with the tree people because likewise, I don't want to climb no freaking trees. Okay. Not my thing. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, me neither.
So
me either.
We get along fine because what sometimes happens is after the trees get trimmed back, then the property owner goes to the tree people and says, hey, do you know a good turf grass person? And, the tree people say, I got a guy.
I got a guy.
James Hill commented and said, just spike up there. It's a blast. And listen, I have watched two certified arborists almost come to a full-fledged fist fight before over whether or not you should climb a tree with spikes or not.
Don't do that.
Let me tell you, these people are different breeds of human beings. They're not normal. Cam, I don't know. You might fall into one of those categories. I don't know. I'm not judging you away. Certified arborists.
I'm gonna be the one on the way that I'm built. I'm gonna be the one on the ground telling you which one you got to cut. Yep, that one right there. Nah, not that one. Not that one. The one over. The one over from there.
Well, let's have a more listen because I know exactly who you are and how you operate, so I'm going to give you a better way to do that than just to point and grunt. All right, J Pink, throw up this picture real quick. All right, so check out right here. The Sun.
That is something that I would do.
Sun Surveyor.
That's something I would do.
They've got a free version. They've got this nice $7.99 pay version. Totally worth it, I think. Pretty cool. So here's the thing, is that it's going to show you the sun and the moon crossing the sky, and you can use your camera and the gyroscope to pan across, and it'll tell you exactly where the sun's going to be relative to whatever direction you're looking. So you stand on that spot on your lawn where you're like, hey, the shade's always hitting here. Well, hey, let's pass it across and see when the sun's there. Oh, by the way, you can change the date and the time. So if it's July 14th, 2022, and you're like, I wonder what this is like on March 14th, 2023 at 2:30 in the afternoon. You go on your phone, you change the date, you change the time. It'll show you exactly where the sun's going to be. It'll show you passing across the sky exactly where it's going to be. So now you can look at those limbs and say, yeah, that eastern sun, right, that morning sun that's coming up over it, I'm missing that if I take that one limb right there out. But I don't need to take that other limb right there. Or maybe I need to take both of them. Hell, maybe I need to go to my significant other and say, listen, that whole gosh darn tree has to go.
It's got to go.
It might come down to that, right? What's Ray's favorite saying? Trees and turf do not grow together. Only the fittest survive.
Yes.
Yep.
Either you
and you can back up your claim with data as well too. You can, honey, hold the sap up, and I want you to follow.
Yeah. I want you to hold the phone up there. Yeah, look it. Yeah. Do you see what's going to happen next year on August 1st, 2023, when the sun passes over? We're missing out on 6 hours of daylight here.
Done.
And we could talk about light stress. I mean, that's a fun topic to get into and talk about. Probably one of the I would say, we touched on two of the more interesting, fringy topics right now in turf research, right? So that is light and how light impacts turf, right? So there's some really cutting edge, cool shit that's going on in that early part of research right now. And then we also talked about metabolomics, which is basically when that nitrogen study, what they did was they figured out all the way down to the to the metabolic level, like what is being metabolized by the plant, by the turf plant, and how do we back that all the way up into the system and figure out, okay, hey, what happens when AMS goes in? What happens when urea goes in? What happens when cal nitrate goes in? And we're figuring out what those different levers pull, and instead of just saying, oh, hey, it got a little bit more green with AMS. Like, we're doing better than that. We actually are. So it's fringe shit. It's starting to come out. There was a really good paper that came out on exogenous applications of amino acids. George Murray, who is the president of the company called Foliar Pack that makes a whole bunch of liquid fertilizers, he put out a pretty good paper on metabolomics of amino acids and trying to figure out exactly which ones are passing through the plant, which ones are being taken up more, which ones are being taken up less. I'm just ranting on right now, but there is some cool shit going on in the background, fellas. And, this is why, to Cam's point, you always have to be learning. And so for the folks at home, does it mean that, Ray and Matt can probably attest to this. How much stuff do we read or consume that we may never apply, but we need to know on background? Because we're either insatiable for knowledge or we need to learn. I mean, listen, if there's somebody that knows more about, anabolic steroids and turfgrass science in the world than Ray, I'll fucking fight you. Right here, right now. I will. I'll come to your house even. I will fly there and I'll fight you. I might get my ass whipped, but I'm still going to stand behind my friend Ray. Okay,
poisons,
so what I'm saying
cancer
though is
drugs, natural disasters, industrial disasters, explosives.
Yes.
High death count events. Like he could probably rip through the first and the royal family.
The royal family of both the UK and Japan.
Who knew that Charles III was accidentally circumcised? Ray did.
Could you imagine Robert Palmer and Ray just talking about explosives one night? Like they just sit down, they put a bottle of bourbon in between them. They're like, all right, y'all talk about
no.
All right,
No. This is.
I have to leave the room. I gotta get out.
That's a 24-pack of PBR pounders and a whole bunch of Spinelli's pizza. That's what that is to get that conversation fired up.
Yeah. Actually, for me, it would be the fifth of larceny. Go.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Hey, Ray.
I think I bought you like 2 of those that night.
3 months. 3 months until Louisville. 3 months until Louisville.
Oh boy,
be an absolute blast.
But
so yeah, from I know the issue. I mean, I know what needs to happen, and it's the same thing that I recommend to people.
Yeah.
I mean, grass and shade, they don't go together. You got to pick whichever one you want.
Yeah, which one you want?
And I think it's a matter of, and I mean, if you look at it at this point, it's mid-July. Like I've got probably 6 to 8 weeks before I'm overseeding. It's on the backside of my lawn. The pictures that I post and what I see from my porch and from 90% of the yard, I can't complain about it at all. And like that's that one little area back there in the corner. And to be honest with you, I think a shed's going there in probably the next year. And that's probably going to get all covered up, and it's not even going to be grass anymore in that area anyway. I can't complain. I just wanted to get you guys' thought and just kind of see what you thought about it, and if you had any other inputs. But I mean, you can even tell the texture of the grass of like this section right here that gets probably 8-10 hours, probably 10, more like 10 hours of sun, I mean, it's a completely different texture. Like the grass is a different texture. And this stuff right here, I can do whatever I want to it, and it's going to be just fine. Like it is going to be just fine. The stuff in the shade and it comes around this time of year when the canopy is full. Like, so when the leaves and stuff start falling in the fall, it won't be an issue. Like, even me growing in my after my overseed, like once the leaves and stuff fall and it thins out that canopy, like it'll start to grow. It'll grow just fine. It'll grow just fine up until about this point in the year, and that's about it. And I think I'm just fine with having to overseed those edges unless I can identify. I think there's a main limb that I might think about getting rid of this fall that may help a lot.
Sure. To be honest, I'm probably the more hippie that would say don't cut down the tree. I like big old established trees like that, and I think that's, growing up in the South, you're used to seeing big magnolias and stuff, and I get affectionate for that. So keep the tree.
The whole tree is not going down. For one, I'm not paying for that.
I'm happy with that.
For two, we're not going to be here that long for me to invest that kind of money.
North Carolina's calling me home.
You got that. You got that right. Not to invest that kind of money into that. Like it's not worth it to me. I'll toss some daggone seed out on the edge in the fall, and it'll look good 11 months out of it, or 10 months out of the year, and I'll be happy with it and say it's good. At some point, some stuff just ain't worth it to you.
DeMay, I short-circuited your brain and your computer connection. Are you okay up there?
Yeah. I mixed too many pounds of nitrogen with those steroids. Those what was that?
Is that an upper and downer thing? Is that what they call a speedball? Stay away from
Ashton Belushi. Oh, wait.
That's hard on you.
That's hard. That's one way of saying it, Matt. It's not so much hard on the rest of your body. It's mostly your heart, right? And Anyway, all right. So, Cam, what other questions do you have for us? And we kind of been like all over the place here. We haven't really followed a format here per se.
I knew it wasn't going to be like that. I'm cool with that.
It's good. It just flows. So then, I guess on the disease front, I am curious on that. Have you experienced any pressure so far? Have you seen anything? And what are you doing right now to manage disease, whether it be through cultural practices and or a fungicide program?
So my front yard definitely had which is what I'm surprised about. It definitely had the highest disease pressure thus far. So I did see a little bit of leaf spot in there. A little bit of brown patch was coming in. And then when I actually had to cut it down, I had to chop that joints down to fix a problem that I caused myself. I was able to definitely see where that damage was. So yeah, I've seen some disease pressure in there. A little bit started creeping in the back. If anybody has followed me for any amount of time, I had an issue with Pythium about a year and a half, 2 seasons ago now. So I am on a 14-day interval with either mefenoxam or another product that is Ray's favorite that I'm not even going to mention, but I think you know what it is, Ray. Yeah, so I'm rotating those two for the Pythium issue, and I haven't had a bit of that to worry about. And I'm also going down with phosphites on a 14-day interval, offset from my methanoxam or in the other product, fungicide. So that way I'm keeping some coverage, offsetting those 2 time periods. And as far as like, go ahead, Ray.
Here's what I'm going to tell you is that if you're doing regular regimented phosphates in a cadence like that, you're extremely well covered for my least favorite disease, which would be the Pisium. You're fairly well covered. I mean, because the way I look at Pisium is if you already have it, you're essentially too late. And if you know you get it, that almost tells me that maybe you should consider regular applications of phosphates during your hot and wet part of the year. You know, that's just my thinking, you know, is because by the time you start sketching for a quart of methanoxam, I think you're a little bit late. Yeah, you're kind of late. Yeah.
Late. Yep. And I mean, that's a product that most people do not have sitting on the shelf. So by the time you've got to go order it, you've got to go find it, whatever the case may be, damage is done. Really? So that happened to me. That happened to me 2 seasons ago. And one of the thing is when it happened, and this is one of the things that I say, like we make mistakes, we learn. I mean, there's stuff that we just haven't experienced before, and you're going to experience it for the first time. So I caught the Pythium disease, what was that, 2 seasons ago? And I guarantee you one thing that I do, you will not get me again. Like I will
phosphates every month, happen. Right, Cam? Phosphates every month from now on.
I'm on a 14-day interval, offset with my methanoxam and the other products that I'm rotating.
Ooh, with. Yeah.
So I haven't seen a ounce of it. Even I haven't seen any mycelium anywhere in this lawn in a season and a half right now. Knock on wood.
Nice.
Nice. But it's all a part of like a program. I mean, it happened. I learned from it. I knew what was going on. I identified what the problem was, and I put a program in place, which is what I ran all last season. And by me running this same program that I'm doing this year, I ran it all last season and was successful with it. So I'm running it again this year. And I haven't had any issues with Pythium due to putting that program in place. But as far as any brown patch leaf spot, I've had some of that popping up. I went down with propanoxystrobin early in the season for my first app coming out of the gate. And then I've been, what I go down with next, Armada was my next application after that.
Oh
yeah. Went down with Armada after that, and my last one that I put down was T-Storm, which is a Lesco product that's I forgot the active. It's one of the stroke diethanoyl methyl. Yep.
Yeah, off-patent thiophanate methyl, also known as 3336, and I think you have a pretty solid, disease prevention program that also, to me, is pretty complete, because the disease that I think a lot of people aren't covering for is Pisium. They're not covering for Pisium. And
I agree.
Here's the bad thing about Pisium is that Pisium is the thing that kills the grass when, for example, it rains for 1 week, and
you get 6 inches of rain.
And I have my friend over here, the Lawn Sauce. He knows what we're talking about, because if it rains for a week here in Hawaii, there's going to be some dead grass too. We're gonna experience that.
Oops.
Yikes.
Yeah. Not a good situation.
And I think when people see Pythium, people aren't quite as familiar with it. And the go-tos for any lung disease is Disease X, propiconazole, or azoxystrobin. That's the go-tos for lung disease, and they do nothing for Pythium. Like Pythium sits there and laugh at it, like, what you think you're doing? And it just continues to wipe out your lawn. And God forbid that you're continuing to get rain, because it then just continues to spread with the water with the water. As the water moves through the soil, it now just continues to spread. So you're done.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's the one that.
No. My shirt's still.
Oh. I listen. I'll say it on air. I was going to type it out, but I'll just say it real quick as an aside. But next time we do an episode with Sean Smith, Hungry Southerner, we're all going shirtless. That's just the way it is. I don't care who you are.
Y'all are weird.
If you got a problem,
I'm not doing it.
That's not weird at all. I'll do it.
I'll do it in Louisville. How about that?
Yes. We'll do a Burt Kreischer show right there in Louisville.
Hey, Cam and I are going to karaoke some Garth Brooks shirtless.
Let's do it.
At the Taj.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
If it hasn't been closed down by
the... we're joking. We're not joking.
I know you're not joking.
Long as you carry it.
I'll give it my best.
It'll be a good show.
I think I did have so my last topic that I just wanted to talk to. I think DeMay, I sent you that frantic message over on the Discord about what the heck is going on and what is happening right now. And I think that was J Pink. If you can go to the front yard reno pictures, I think that's kind of where it was at. So to that.
I remember that.
Yep. So the first picture was the day I made that application. So I'm gonna just go ahead and say this was my first. I actually made a video on this, and I put it. That was my last video, because it was just one of those things that y'all have always talked about. It was like, if you make enough applications and you work in it long enough, you're going to mess something up. Something is going to happen that you were not expecting to happen. And hey, this was my first swing at it. And I was like, all right, let's go ahead. And I tried some products. So the fungicides that I ran and I combined together, I ran them last year. I knew that really wasn't the problem. I tried a new fertilizer, which is I typically spike my fungicide applications with a little bit of FERT. This one, the front was, as I told you, was a little underfed. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and kill two birds with one stone. And I went a little heavier with the FERT than what I would typically do if I was rolling something together like that. I was like, okay, the math says I need this. This is what the math says that this is probably where I should be from the math. When I tell y'all I ran the math 5 different times because my gut was saying, what are you doing? Why are you running these numbers this many times? And the answer kept coming out the same. And I was just like, let's go with it.
You know what, Cam?
Listen, we should all get that we should all get that tattooed on our ass. Let's go with it.
You know what, Cam? There are times when you're about to
isn't that the marketing slogan for Cut and Kill? Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, there are times when you're about to mix something and something tells you, maybe I shouldn't. And you know where that comes from? That comes from when you've made enough applications to where that application is so hot that the grass starts turning black right before your eyes. And the reason why I can say that, Cam, is because 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I've made a few applications that did exactly that. Right before my eyes, the turf turned black. And the only way
it happens,
you turn turf black is when your liquid fertilizer solution is just way too concentrated. Way too much. I mean, and
or
this is what
you tip burn the shit out of the yard too. Which, I think we're looking at it.
Go with it.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
Let's just go with it.
It was hot. I mean, and so
maybe hot.
Just like that,
might have been hot.
That gut feel, like just like Ray was talking about, man. And the reason I was like, I just kept running the numbers and running the numbers and running the numbers. I've never had to run the numbers that many times. And the reason I did it is because it just felt off. Like my gut, everything in me was saying, this is not it. Like this is not it.
But that gut is built from, and I'm not trying to sound hard here, and I don't think any of these guys would say the same thing, but that is years and years and years of mostly good things happening, but also some really fucking terrible, awful shit happening, and being observant of it and being like, oh,
this level of tip burn
I should never do this again. Wait, John Perry.
This was a matter.
John Perry.
Like, J-Pink, 1 second. Go back like 2 pictures.
What would John Perry say about that?
Oh,
John Perry, would you run tenacity in 95-degree weather and expect to control anything?
I would advise anybody who's thinking of doing this not to.
You heard it from him. Listen. The man himself has spoken. How are you going to argue with that? The guy who, I don't know. I mean, he tries. He tries real hard. Got the saddest sunshine.
Nope.
He's got the saddest Sunjo video in history of YouTube.
Right.
Hey, I'm sure we'll see him in Louisville again too, like last year. It was a good time. I had a great time with him. Shit, an hour. I don't remember any of it, but I know we did.
I just say that was one of the most encounter right there. I was there for it. It was like one of those like surreal moments where I'm walking up, I'm like, oh wait, that's him. And I look over at you and I'm like, hey, Matt's fucking plastered. This is gonna be interesting.
I was perfectly aware of my surroundings.
I
was in total control.
Listen, when I say plastered, I mean you were in your element, Donnie. You were fine. And if we're not watching The Big Lebowski on movie night soon, I'm gonna get upset. We got to get The Big Lebowski worked in for Matt to watch on movie night. So, all right. Anyway, back to.
Listen, okay. Cam, let me tell you, tip burn is okay because tip burn, the grass isn't going to die. That means eventually it's going to turn nice and green.
Correct.
It's going to grow out of
the problem is when it turns orange and it looks like it has been
done that.
Yeah. Orange is never a good color in grass, whether it's from Pythium or fert burn or chemical burn. Orange always is followed by severe death, like non-returnable death level of death. Like you're in the ground, you're dead. You might as well be, burned to ashes, kind of dead. Tip burn, it's fine. Yeah, you get a couple weeks, it grows out, it looks good, everything's beautiful.
It'll mow off.
It took me about 3 weeks. It did. It took me about 3 weeks. I think the picture we had up before was when it was at its worst. It literally turned. It was brown all the way across.
Your coverage is
and
great.
then
But I still see green in the under canopy, so you're good.
Yeah, go to the next one. Yeah.
Hey, still great coverage here, by the way. It's perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
See, thank you. This is the same thing I told Turf. I told Turf in the chat when I sent him a voice. I was like, look, hey man, I got some pretty decent coverage. He was like, how did you find that silver lining in the way your yard looks right now?
Oh, you got to, dude. Listen. You know how you found
You
that
have
silver
to.
lining? That was hours of beating yourself up and feeling anxiety and not sleeping at night and wondering. That's the Tiger King moment. The fucking Tiger King. I am never going to financially recover from this ever. You know that shit right there. And then you're like, you know what though, man? I'll tell you what, that coverage.
I got some good ass coverage.
Pretty goddamn good, boys. Look at that shit. And everybody's
You know
like,
what?
yeah, Cam, like you smoked the lawn pretty evenly. Great job.
Okay.
You know,
I can
in
see
baseball,
that.
Cam, in baseball, they call that warning track power. You got warning track power. Hit the shit out of that. Guy caught it 3 feet before the wall. Hey,
Still didn't make it.
Listen,
But,
is there anything worse when someone kills a yard and they leave like 3 green stripes in the middle of it? That's way worse than a completely dead yard.
Hashtag
To
cut
me,
me.
that just it screams rookie to me.
But
I saw
again, like
that
I said-
last week. I actually saw that last week. I saw that.
Oh, really?
It looks
In person?
terrible.
Whereas, no, in person, you know,
Oh,
somebody
fuck.
effed up and sprayed what I believe is like total killer on an area of lawn. And my customer and I are looking at it now, and I'm saying, hey, I think they put Roundup here, except, my God, they have bad aim, because I see like green stripes going through the area that they covered, and it's like, holy cow! I mean, it's like bad aim. But in any case,
Sound like my wife after I've been drinking and go to the bathroom.
yeah.
Why is there pee on the wall?
Raise the toilet seat next time, damn it.
I do that.
You're not an animal. You're civilized.
Yeah, you raise the toilet seat. However,
do you raise it with your feet or your hand, though?
Oh, I mean, mostly hand. I mean, feet, maybe in like a public restroom, but you know, we should have. We should have.
But public.
This sounds like, I'll tell you what. If you're not a member,
are we talking about lawns anymore?
We are for a second. We'll get back into that real quick, but I have to tease this real quick because we're definitely gonna have this conversation on Sunday night, because I would like to talk about each of our own personal public restroom etiquette on the pre-show for burn and return. I think that's
Lord.
I think it's a useful topic. I can't wait to dive into this. So the only way you're going to hear that, though, is if you're a member. So check us out, www.patreon.com/burn and return.
That's a great
You can hear
plug
all
we're
about
public restroom etiquette.
Exactly. Do you lift the toilet seat up
The
with
plugs and the producers, boy? That J Pink, I tell you,
with the hand, with the foot? I mean, do you wad up all that toilet paper so that the head of your penis doesn't touch the front of the bowl? I don't know. We're going to find all that out on Sunday night, because when you get in a public restroom, things change very quickly, and you got to be able to adapt. Just like Cam did after he torched the lawn, and it wasn't torch though. Like look, I would look at this and be like, listen, what I did is working. I would be in it. And here, okay, so boys, let's do this, because Cam is now a licensed applicator. He's got some clients, so let's real talk this real quick. Cam, did you know this was going to happen, or you didn't know this was going to happen?
I knew the possibility of it.
Okay.
Could
so
happen.
let's talk about it. Let's talk about this both ways. So Matt and Ray, I want to ask you, if you knew it was going to happen, how would you communicate with your customer ahead of time? And if you didn't know it was going to happen, how would you communicate with your customer after the fact of, hey, it's a little discolored? So let's hear it. How would you guys approach that situation? Matt, I'll give you the before. Ray, I'll give you the after.
First, I would say is okay. So if I knew it was going to happen, say for instance, I'm walking up on a situation where I know I'm going to have to get a little squirrely in my application. That's what I tell them. That listen, it's going to look worse before it gets better, and that's just the reality of the situation. Bear with me here. Give me 2 applications, and I'll make a world of progress where you'll have a little bit of faith in me. But after the first one, you're going to think I'm nuts, and but after the second one, you're going to think maybe there is a little bit of saving grace in there. If I didn't know it was going to happen and I walked up on this, and I'd be like, well, we were getting a little aggressive for reason X, Y, and Z. He got a little toasty, but I don't want you to think this is anything out of the ordinary, that's irreparable. With a little bit of water, a little bit of rain, a little bit of time, it's going to grow out, and this is all going to go according to plan. But we got a little bit of aggressive with it. So just bear with me. We're going to be just fine.
Could you please stop paying
Or
me?
I would be like, who in the fuck did you let cut your grass? These motherfuckers that cut your grass fucked up. They cut it way too fucking low. I can't believe it. Don't you ever let them on your fucking yard again. Either that.
Could you please stop paying me naked too, by the way? Please?
Yeah. And for me...
So Matt, your description of exactly that, I got a little aggressive. That's exactly how I've been explaining it to people. Like, so my neighbors have been like, they've noticed the difference. It's like, man, your lawn is like really green now. It wasn't like that a couple of weeks ago. Like, what's going on? Like, everybody wanted to say something, but they didn't want to say something.
You got to lean right into that. Be like, I knew exactly what I was doing. Are you kidding me? Like,
I was man, I was like, I just pushed the limit a little bit. I got a little aggressive, and it didn't quite like that. So, I mean,
yeah.
But look at
you
it
can
now.
touch it if you want. I'll take your picture touching it.
But you know what? For me, the way I tell people is, I'll tell people, hey, it's going to look like I killed your yard. All right? I tell it just like that. It's going to look like I killed your freaking yard.
I really want I need Ray to wear a body camera.
Ray was my doctor.
I want. Yeah. Listen, we're going to cut your whole fucking leg off, but you know what? The cancer's not coming back. I mean, there's just no way about it. Have you seen the wonderful things they're doing with prosthetics these days?
But you know what? I tell them
deal with it, or you're going to get my boot up your ass.
Yeah, it's like
you can function fine with one fucking kidney, okay?
Yeah, because here's all of these applications where things don't happen and the reason why I can talk is because for the longest time, people in Hawaii are used to a weed control application being a combination of MSMA and 3-way, for example. They're used to that. Okay? Or they're used to having their lawn broadcast sprayed with MSMA plus image. So if the lawn is a little singed after I'm done, and as long as I know that the grass is going to grow back out of it, it's okay.
They're good with it. Nothing new.
They're good with it. But then in cases where the lawn singes and I wasn't expecting it, hey, I just fess up to it. I'll say, I think I got a little carried away here, but it should grow back. It should grow back. I say this is probably going to mow off. And I'm not lying because I run that mower over it back down to a 1/2 inch. All the singed areas get cut off, and you don't see it in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but
and that's exactly what it was here. I mean, I could see that it was just some tip burn from about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch down, and by the time I cut it down, I dumped some water and stuff on it so that it support some good growth, and gave it a little light dose of FERT just to help it along, and that was about it. And it was 3 weeks. It was 3 weeks, and it was better than it was before. Honestly, it was better than it was before.
And Cam, on applications where I know it's going to singe a little bit, my practice lately has been to throw in about 1/10 of a pound of nitrogen from UMax into the spray. And so what happens there is that nitrogen from the UMax is going to be there right when the grass comes out of that application. It hits, grass greens up, grass starts growing again. And of course, the weeds are looking like I went nuclear on them. Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Everybody's happy. I mean, so there's ways.
And I think so my philosophy has been like I will try a lot of, like I said, this was a new FERT, something new that I was trying. I'm always my own guinea pig first.
Yeah, first.
I mean, I've got a couple of, I mean, I got 3 sections that I can work with. I can work with my test plot, my front yard, my back, whatever. Whenever I'm trying to advance something or I want to add something to a program, I can try it at home first. If I burn my own lawn up, I'm better off with that because I've got that option. When it comes to making other applications, like I've got my clients on a program that has been working for some time that I've vetted and I've validated. And unless I run up against something, and for the most part, it probably wouldn't be from a fertilizer problem. That fertilizer program that they're on is pretty set. I've been running it for a while. I've seen the results, and even in a couple of different soil conditions, soil conditions and everything else, and it's been pretty stable. So as far as that goes, like for my customers, I would definitely try something out on my own lawn, which is what I was doing here because I was thinking about it. I was like, if I can add this in, this would potentially be like my spoon feeding summer type of fertilizer applications that I can make. And from a cost perspective, I was like, this could be a benefit.
Yeah.
So this is why I was kind of looking towards this. I was like, I got a little hot on that one.
And you know, Cam, this is why
it's good.
You know, you've known me for a couple of years, and I always advocate slightly higher water volumes than average. And the reason why I do that is so that I can safely put down meaningful amounts of fertilizer, for example, and not risk the grass turning orange or black on me right before my eyes. I mean, because I know that if I want to get spicy with the rate of nitrogen or iron that I want to put down on a lawn, sorry, but my water volume is going up 2 to 5 gallons per 1,000 square foot. Yeah. I'm not going to think I have big balls because I'm going to cram all of that into about a half a gallon of water per 1,000 square foot and send it. Because at that point, you do things like that. That is when you're faced with the grass turning black or orange right before your eyes. Whereas for me, I put down a high rate application and like 5 gallons of water per 1,000 square foot. The grass takes it. I get the results that I'm looking for, and little to no tip burn.
Yeah,
you know, I don't create a problem.
I think that was a part of my problem. Honestly, I think water volume, and I really think that was part of my problem was water volume. I went down; it was definitely around that half a gallon. maybe just slightly higher than that. So as I stepped back and I started analyzing what happened through the scenario, I was like, yeah, that was probably a contributor. And again, just making sure like stuff that needs to get watered in, especially if you're going down on with those lower carrier volumes, Just if you need to water it in, make sure you get that done. And I think that was another part of the thing that kind of contributed to it. And I mean, it's summertime, so then right after that, it gets baked in the sun for 90 degrees after that.
Yep.
Ray,
Yep.
I'm going to ask this. If you're spraying low volume, could you just use an EC meter to check the concentration of your solution to determine whether or not, if you do or do not get water on it, it's potential to burn?
You
I don't
probably
know
can.
what the EC limit of most turf grasses would be, but I would say that if you're less than like 4, you would be fine. Are you familiar with an EC meter, Cam?
I am. Well, I know I am.
I'm not, and I was going to ask about that. I'm not.
Super cheap. You can get them on Amazon, and it measures the electrical conductivity of the water. Basically, it's just measuring the amount of salts that are in the water, the dissolved solids and stuff. A lot of times it'll measure electrical conductivity, total dissolved solids, and maybe you have one that measures pH too. I don't know. But it's used oftentimes in hydroponics, where you'll test the EC or the electrical conductivity of your hydroponic water that's recirculating. If it's too concentrated, you're going to burn up your plants. And so effectively you can do the same thing for a foliar application. You know, look, here's a cheap TDS EC and temperature meter right here, $19.99. I got one at a local lab supply here, and I think I paid $9 for it. And you know, you dip it in there, and if it's less than say 4, then chances are you're going to be good to go.
Actually, over the years, I've kind of developed a little rule of thumb where I go by no more than 1/10 of a pound of nitrogen from either urea or ammonium sulfate per gallon of water.
And that's super safe. Like, you can't mess up at that.
Yeah, and what I'm talking,
I fly a little more squirrely than that. I'll say that.
Well, but then let's put it this way:
I probably killed a lot more grass too.
I can safely do this.
I'd say it's fair.
To, for example, real cut turf grass that is also not very heavily watered. So you see, that's like 2 confounding factors where I don't want to put a hot shot onto grass in that situation because it might not end well. Exactly. Yeah. The grass is going to do that. The grass is going to do that.
Not everybody wants to sit down with the TI-83 or TI-86 and math out the EC of the water. That is some real deal nerd shit right there.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, but I have no desire to do that.
And you know, as a rule, over the years, I figured out that 1/10 of a pound per gallon, and so what that means is that if I want to apply more than 1/10 of a pound of N as a liquid spray, I start to multiply the number of gallons that I need per 1,000 square foot and apply accordingly.
So Ray, if you...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, for example, if I want to do a 1/2 pound of N as a spray, that's 5 or even 10 gallons of water per 1,000 square foot. Okay. Well, then alternatively though, if I don't do that, and if I have the ability to do so, I am making my application behind a running irrigation system so that as I'm applying, it is immediately watered in before it has time to dry. I mean, that's the other way to do it, is because at some point in time, I have that little uneasy feeling that is not my 4 cups of coffee that's telling me that if I leave this on the grass for the next irrigation cycle, I'm going to have orange grass. So I better not.
And see, that's what I was about to ask you. When I was about to interject, I was like, so what about irrigation and being able to add irrigation to it. So that you answered that one right on.
Yeah, I mean, if like I said, if I'm going to do something squirrely, like how's this for a hot application? 1 pound of urea per 1,000 square feet in a gallon of water.
Oh, bam!
I've done a lot of that.
Okay, and that again, that's the kind of thing where I'm spraying it, and as I'm finishing the pass, the irrigation zone is switching on and watering that area. Just saying. Just saying. I mean,
gentlemen, it is 11 o'clock. We are going to have to move on to the show after the show. Cam, thank you so much for taking the time out of your Thursday evening. I know it's late and coming to hang out with us. Ray, Ryan, always thank you, of course. We will be back here on Sunday for the patrons to record our next episode of Burn and Return. And hey, Cam, no more tip burn. Next time, hey, I challenge you. Just one spot. Paint it orange a little bit, and let's see what happens. Do it. Just figure out what that critical threshold is where you reach the orange, because once you see it, it'll never leave your mind.
It's one of those paths you got to walk at some point, huh?
Yeah,
that's right.
Because likewise, Cam, I know that if I'm working on well-watered grass that is also going to get irrigation within the next 12 hours, I have pushed it up to 0.2 of a pound of N per gallon. I have done it. But then anything after that, you are basically FAFO unless you have irrigation running right after your spray.
Oh, Cam, trust me, we're gonna talk about pushing the limit here in the after show. For those of you that want to tune in to the after show, you can patreon.com/burn and return. It is adult talk, adult topics, that kind of fun thing, where we are going to review different things we found on the internet and point out what is good about it and what is ultimately scientifically inaccurate about it, and hopefully try to provide some context and have some laughs along the way, because we're assholes, not scumbags. At least not all the time. So if you're into that kind of thing, stick around and check it out. If you're not, no problem. Feel free to click on and have a good rest of your evening. For everybody else, we'll catch you on the other side. Have a good one.